It was quite obvious that an evil entity possessed this doll, and I was now its plaything. Have you ever felt like something was watching you? Have you ever been sure that you put something in a certain place, only to come back and find it somewhere else? Have you ever passed wind and someone immediately walked into the room? Have you ever been so afraid of a toy that you refused to have it in your room at night? Have you ever been so terrified that you tried to scream but nothing came out? Have you ever been talking to someone and you accidentally spat on their face? Have you ever seen something move out the corner of your eye, but when you look, it has disappeared? Have you ever prayed to God to keep you safe because you know that there is evil lurking? Have you ever been defecating in a public convenience, only to find there is no bog roll left, and you are forced to sacrifice a sock for the greater good? Well, if you've answered no to all of these questions, then I suggest you stop lying to yourself. If you have answered yes to any of the above, get ready for terror beyond belief that will stick with you, like when someone with bad breath is speaking to you, and then you're sure you can still smell it a few hours later on. The story begins at a car boot sale in a quaint village in Staffordshire, United Kingdom. Have you ever been to a car boot sale? Have you ever been looking out for that bargain which could be worth a fortune? Have you ever left skid marks in a friend's toilet and there was no toilet brush? Don't worry, you're not alone. It was a cold winter morning. There was a hard frost and the grass crunched as I was walking along, and the cool air stung my cheeks like a snake in football boots walking all over my face. I walked over to a stall which was full of old tat, and I spied a doll which instantly gave me the creeps. It had those eyes that followed you wherever you walked, but they were also quite bog-eyed, which made it even more creepy. The doll had long brown hair that reached its feet, and it had a terrifyingly menacing grin on its face, as though it knew it had got away with some mischief. Also at the stall was a collection of plates which would match my kitchen perfectly, so I haggled with the old crone who owned them, and she agreed on a fair price. As she boxed the plates up for me, she grabbed the creepy doll and placed it on top of the box, saying, "Here, have this too, and may it bring you better luck than it has me." And with that, she chuckled to herself and started packing the rest of her items away in her car. Let me just ask you a few questions. Have you ever been given something by someone and you really didn't want it? Have you ever been too polite to turn it down? Have you ever dropped a log in a friend's toilet and it simply won't flush down the loo? Me too. I took the plates and begrudgingly took the doll back to my home, which is a small 2-bedroom house in Wroxeter. I put the doll away in the loft, which is where I tend to hoard most of my items. Here is where things start to get weird. That night, I experienced some lucid dreams and sleep paralysis. Have you ever woken up in the night and been unable to move, as though every inch of your body is being pressed into the mattress? Have you ever felt as though someone was standing over you? Have you ever been sleeping next to someone in bed and forgot that they were there, and you audibly break wind, and to save embarrassment, you pretend you're asleep, and do a little snore for added effect? Well, if not, then consider yourself lucky. The next morning, I came downstairs to buy a living room, turned on the light, and to my horror, the doll was sat there on my sofa, staring directly at me with that creepy grimace on its face. I stood there in complete shock. No one else could have moved the doll. No one had access to my house except for me. I stood there staring at the doll for what seemed like 10 minutes, trying to explain what had happened, but I couldn't. I finally grabbed the doll and took it back to the loft, this time locking the hatch. The next night I had a terrible dream. I dreamt that an enraged rabid horse broke into my bedroom. It was a nightmare. I barely slept a wink. In the morning, I tentatively opened my bedroom door and checked the loft hatch. The lock was still intact. Thank goodness, I thought. I walked downstairs and suddenly got a waft of food. It smelled like bacon. Must be the neighbours, I thought to myself. I walked down into the kitchen, and what I saw made me scream with pure terror. The doll was sat there at the dining table, with a full English breakfast in front of it, with all the trimmings. Bacon, eggs, sausage, hash brown, you name it. It had that sinister glare. How was this possible? I stood there expecting to see the doll move, but it didn't. That was enough. I took the doll and threw it into my dustbin at the end of the garden. I walked back to the kitchen and enjoyed the full English and was surprised to find all the washing up had been done, which was quite nice. That evening came, and I was so scared to go to sleep in case I experienced night terrors again. I remember watching the clock, and it got to around 4 AM when I finally succumbed to fatigue and my eyes closed. I had the most awful dream that I was eating a massive marshmallow, and when I woke in the morning, my pillow was gone. This was too weird. I went across the landing to the toilet, and to my horror, when I opened the toilet door, the creepy doll was sat on the toilet, with newspaper on its lap, and there was a terrible, noxious aroma in the room. I was frozen solid, but managed to catch a glimpse down the toilet, and saw a huge, slimy, unbroken turd poking out of the water. Surely this doll couldn't have produced this excrement. I had never been so scared, but also so impressed in all my life. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. I grabbed the doll, flushed the toilet and ran over to my neighbour's house. I knocked on the door, and their 9-year-old daughter answered. "Hello there, Phonique," I said. "Hi," she replied. She looked at the doll I was holding. "What's that?" she said. And at this point, I had a genius idea. "It's a little gift that I have for you, but you can only have her on one condition. You must not tell your parents that you got it from me. Do you understand?" "Of course," she said. "It's our little secret," I replied. She gladly took the doll, and I sprint back to my house and bolted the door shut. The family across the road claimed all manner of strange things happened to them, but everyone thought that they were mad. Within the next 3 months, the family all perished. First Phonique, then her mum, and then her father. And their house remains empty and derelict to this day. Thankfully, I have not seen that doll ever since, but I am sure she must still be at large. How would you feel?
Toodaloo.